What's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, this has kind of been the big hot button topic in the industry. Scrolling through social media today, this is mostly what I was seeing discussed. This seems to be kind of the big story of the day. And that was the update to the IFBB rules that if you're an IFBB Pro, your pro status is only good for 3 years if you're not an active pro. So this would mean if you're not competing for 3 years and not renewing your membership for 3 years and not paying your membership fees for 3 years, your pro status will be retracted and you'll have to re-earn your pro card. So it's a pretty serious adjustment to the rules. And honestly, I think it makes a lot of sense because obviously I think the intention behind this rule is to provide an incentive for existing IFBB pros to not only be active and compete, but also to pay their membership fees. I don't think the goal of this rule is to take away pro status. This rule was put into place to make sure that if you are a pro, you're keeping up on your membership, you're keeping up on your fees, you're competing. I think that's the whole goal here. And then the final piece of that is that athletes who held IFBB Pro status before 2023 and have not renewed their membership have until December 31st, 2025 to become active members. Otherwise, their pro status will be canceled and can only be reestablished through a pro qualifier. So they have essentially till the end of this 2025, this year. But I do want to be clear, I do think that based on the way these rules read, it's not saying if you don't compete for 3 years, your pro status will be revoked. It's saying if you don't renew your membership and keep up on your fees. So if you don't compete for 3 years, but you're still renewing your pro status and paying the membership fee, I don't think it matters based on the way this reads. If you don't, it doesn't matter if you compete or not. It just matters that your membership status is active. So I just want to be clear, based on the way these rules read, especially if you look up at how they define an active member, the active part is really just paying the fees and renewing it. It doesn't say anything about you have to compete within 3 years. So I think a lot of people were looking at this and defining an inactive pro as someone who's literally not active, as in not competing. I don't think that's what this is. So I think really who this affects most is probably mostly going to be IFBB pros on social media that use IFBB in their handles, in their names, in their bios, and maybe they use that for their business, whether it's coaching or diet or they have a gym, whatever. If they turned pro 10, 15 years ago and they haven't been keeping up on their membership, they wouldn't be able to use that IFBB pro status in advertising their business, essentially. I don't think it's going to apply to people that just haven't competed for a while, as long as they're paying their fees. Like, for example, we could talk about Big Ramy for a second. I saw RX Muscle on Instagram, I think it was yesterday, they posted that there's a rumor going around that Big Ramy might come back and compete in the 2025 Mr. Olympia. Big Ramy would be a good example of kind of conflating this rule because he's a guy that, by the competing definition, has not been active. But if he's been paying his membership and renewing it, he wouldn't lose his pro status. I don't know if he has. Maybe he hasn't. But I think Ramy would be an extreme example of somebody that could lose their pro status if they're not keeping up on their membership, keeping up on their fees. And imagine Big Ramy, again, an extreme example. He's a Mr. Olympia champion and a mass monster, going back to a pro qualifier to try to re-earn his pro card. It seems kind of insane. But again, I don't think this is applying to competing. I think it's just keeping up on the fees, which maybe Ramy has been. Which, by the way, we last saw Ramy on stage competing early 2023 at the 2023 Arnold. So we are going on 2 years right now of Ramy not competing. He's getting close to that 3 years. So, again, I feel like this is kind of serving as a reminder because they said they have till the end of 2025. Ramy would fit within that category because Ramy hasn't competed since 2023. If he didn't renew his pro status or pay his membership fees or whatever, he has until the end of 2025 to do that, to keep his pro status and not have to go through that process of going through a pro qualifier and re-earning his pro card. So I think really this is just kind of a reminder and a warning. You will lose your pro status if you are not renewing your membership. And then, like I said, I feel like it's really going to affect the people that really are just not competing and using it in advertisements for their business on social media. I don't think it's going to affect like the big names really. And honestly, I don't think there's that many big name guys that are current pros that go 3 years without competing anyway. Because to compete in any IFBB Pro show, they have to have an active membership. So most of the guys, like the names that you know, the names that you're used to seeing, the names that you might see compete again, most of those guys don't even go that long without competing anyway. So is this really going to be like an earth-shattering rule change? Probably not, because these guys they have to register to do a pro show anyway. And I can't even really think of a big relevant name right now that it's been over 3 years since we've seen them do a pro show and they're still like in the bodybuilding zeitgeist of conversation. And if there are any, they're seeing this announcement right now and they still essentially have a full year of 2025 to get on top of it and renew their membership so as to not lose their pro status. So is it really that big and controversial of a thing? Not really. It just kind of makes sense. And as far as Ramy doing the Olympia, personally, I kind of doubt it. He's missed the 2023 and 2024 Olympias. What are the odds that he comes back in 2025? I think they're pretty slim. And RX Muscle even said in their post that his team did not get back to them. So really, I don't think it's that controversial of a thing because, again, it's just make sure you renew your membership. It's not saying, like, again, based on how I'm reading this, you could go 10 years and not compete. As long as you're paying your membership, you don't lose your pro status. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I saw some concerns like, what if you're pregnant? What if you're injured? What if there's some extenuating circumstance? I really think they might make some exceptions for things like that. But again, it's not 1 year. It's not 2 years. It's 3 full years. So I really don't think a lot of those criticisms would even apply, because if you've got an injury that would take you out from 3 years of not even being able to renew your membership, you're probably never going to compete again if it's that severe. I mean, we're talking about a very long period of time. So I think it just makes sense. And like I said, I don't think the goal of this is to strip a bunch of pro cards. I think they just want people to pay their membership fees, and this is just a warning. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about this particular story. Like I said, I was scrolling through social media today, and I was just constantly seeing people talk about this. And it seems to be kind of controversial, but it really just seems like a common sense thing. If you're a pro bodybuilder, renew your membership. And I guess maybe even that could be a separate discussion, because I saw some comments about that. Should a pro bodybuilder even have to pay a membership fee to remain a pro? But that's another debate in and of itself, because it's been this way for decades. But let me know your thoughts on this particular rule. And the other piece of this too is I saw people saying you should have to remove the IFBB from your bio or your status or your social media or whatever if you don't renew your fees for 3 years. That's another debate. I think you should. If you don't renew your membership and you're not on top of it for 3 years in a row, I think you should have to. If you're that like far removed from it, that it's been 3 years, I don't think you should be using that as advertisement. But realistically, I don't know if there's any real way the IFBB could enforce this as far as making people remove it from their Instagrams or their bios or whatever. I guess they could pursue it if they really wanted to, but would they really start suing ex-pro bodybuilders? Then you gotta think too, like, when you say inactive, I guess it is a little bit of maybe a stretch. For what if you're a 60-year-old, like you competed back in the 80s, you competed back in the 70s. Should you still be able to refer to yourself as an IFBB pro, or I guess you should just say former, but why would you have to renew your membership if you're obviously not going to compete again? You're like 60 plus. Do you still get to refer to yourself as an IFBB pro? I guess you really wouldn't, right? I guess you would just say you're a former pro. So yeah, it really does seem kind of like a non-issue to me, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below about all these different aspects of this new rule. Now, next up in the news, we got the first pretty comprehensive physique update from Nick Walker, going into his big rematch with Martin Fitzwater at the Pittsburgh Pro in May. Now, we know that like a week or so ago, Nick was weighing over 300 pounds. Now that he's a little bit further into his prep for Pittsburgh, He's probably under 300 now, I would imagine, in this picture, in this most muscular. Maybe he's not still over 300. I would imagine that was his peak. And he took a picture, he posted it, showing that he was over 300 pounds. I believe it was 302.2, to show that was like the peak of his offseason. And then from that point forward, he would be coming down. So I'm assuming that was like the heaviest he ever was during this go-around. But we've talked a lot about new coaches lately. This has been really the topic of the past year, is big-name coaches stepping down, and then the big-name bodybuilders that they coached, whether it's Chris Bumstead, Derek Lunsford, Hadi Chupin, Nick Walker, Sean Clarita, Samson Dauda, Hani Rambod stepping down, Matt Jansen stepping down, and new coaches coming in to fill their place, whether it's Boss of Outlaw, whether it's Chris Aceto, or in Nick Walker's case, Kyle Wilkes. And we've talked a lot about how, like in Derek's case, that's the one that's upcoming the soonest. At the Arnold Classic, we're going to get to see these new results, because Derek worked with Hani for basically his best run of his career, winning the 212 Olympia, transitioning to Open, runner-up at the Open Olympia, winning the Open Olympia, third place this year. That could have been the height of his career, and we're going to find out at the Arnold if it's going to go downhill from here or uphill from here. Could he beat the current Mr. Olympia, Samson Dauda, at the Arnold with a new coach, Chris Aceto? We're going to find out. But it's also worth mentioning that in Nick Walker's case, we're getting to witness that too. And granted, his case is a little bit different because Matt Jansen, you could argue that Nick Walker was part of the reason that Matt Jansen stepped down. Nick Walker pulling out of the Olympia this past year, in the video that he did with Matt Jansen announcing that got Matt a lot of blowback, and he announced his retirement shortly after that. We don't really know for sure what went down between Nick and Matt. We don't really know for sure if they're on good terms. We just don't know. But Nick's case is a little bit different from Derek, for example. Derek went from Hani to Chris Aceto, another very well-known, well-established, great track record coach. And Nick is going from Matt Jansen, who, for all his flaws and all the criticism that Matt got, Matt was a very established, and if we're being honest, he had a lot of success. It was ups and downs. I mean, it was a rocky road for Matt, but if we're being honest, he did have a lot of success with the guys that he worked with. I mean, even just speaking on the guys that left him recently, he got Sean Clarita an Olympia title. He got Nick Walker top 3 at the Olympia. He was the 3rd best bodybuilder in the world. So for all the criticism that Matt gets, I feel like he did do some good things with these guys, whether they were just genetically gifted or whatever. But Nick's case is a little bit different because the coach that he's going to, I'm sure, is probably a great coach. I'm not very familiar with Kyle, as familiar as I am with maybe Aceto or Boss of Outlaw. He's not as big of a name, so it's kind of an interesting case because, like in Derek's case, going from Hani to Aceto, you're going from one Mount Rushmore guy to another. In Nick's case, I don't know if I would say that Matt Jansen was a Mount Rushmore coach, but he was going from a very big name, well-established coach to now a lesser-known coach. So imagine Nick does better and looks better with this lesser-known coach than the big-name celebrity coach Matt Jansen. So it's a little bit more interesting with Nick, I feel. Like, if Derek comes into the Arnold and he looks really good, it'll be interesting, but I wouldn't say that it would be super surprising because it's Chris Aceto. He's got a great track record. In Nick's case, if he comes into Pittsburgh, for example, and looks way better than he looked the last time we saw him on stage, that would be pretty surprising, going from Matt Jansen to arguably a much smaller name. And by the way, I don't mean any disrespect towards Kyle, but just at face value, he's a lot lesser known than Matt was, then certainly a lot lesser known than Aceto, Hani Rambod, maybe even Boss of Outlaw. So how does Nick look in this physique update? I think he actually looks really good. He's got a long time. Keep in mind, we're talking about May for the Pittsburgh Pro. He's got some time here. I saw some critical comments. I don't want to write off Nick just yet. I know a lot of people are already writing off Nick Walker. But Nick has also done some great things in bodybuilding. He's a freak. He's a good bodybuilder. Yes, he has some flaws. Yes, he's not perfect, but I'm not writing off Nick Walker yet. Some people think he's just cooked and it's over for him. I think we should just let him cook and see what happens. I'm sure that nobody understands better the gravity of Nick's next competition than Nick does. I'm sure he understands the pressure and the importance of this next show, considering the trajectory of his career going into it, missing these Olympias, the kind of controversial year that he had, the backlash that he got, the last look on stage, that New York Pro in particular, a little bit lackluster. I don't think that Nick needs us to tell him that how he looks at this show is important. I think he understands that probably better than anybody. So I say just don't write him off. Let him cook. Now, if he comes into Pittsburgh and he does not look good, let's say he looks worse than he looked at the New York Pro, which I think was one of his worst recent looks, and he also loses the Pittsburgh Pro, then I'll be pretty concerned about the future of Nick. But right now, all I can really say is I'm excited to see Nick on stage again. And I hope that Nick looks fantastic. I hope he blows our minds. And I hope he makes us eat our words. I think it's been a very critical year for Nick. A very critical couple of years for Nick. And I hope that he comes back and shocks us. I hope that every ounce of doubt that any of us had about Nick Walker being one of the best in the world in 2025 is just evaporated. That would be awesome. Whether or not that happens, we'll just have to see. But I hope we do see it. I like Nick a lot. Did I like to see him miss back-to-back Olympias? Of course not. Was I a little bit disappointed by his New York Pro package in 2024? Of course. Am I still a fan of Nick Walker? Fuck yeah, of course. I hope he has an insane 2025 and he's going against a top 4 in the world, Martin Fitzwater at the Pittsburgh Pro. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below about Nick Walker's current look in this picture, and also this look in the context of like a week or so ago. Nick letting us know that he weighed 302 pounds or whatever it was. Just knowing how big he is in this picture, give or take a week. Now, next up in the news, the latest physique update from Blessing Awodibu. 2 weeks into his prep now. So Blessing had posted some recent physique updates after we hadn't seen him compete in a while. And those updates got a lot of criticism because he got very heavy in the offseason, and that weight was very noticeable on his frame. I don't think he was holding it very well. Now, in these recent updates, he's starting to tighten up a bit. You're starting to see him get leaner. The waist is coming in a little bit. You're not seeing as much just excess body fat in these updates. He's really starting to lock in here. But I will say this. This is still going to be kind of critical of Blessing. I love Blessing, but still. For as big as Blessing got, he was over 300 pounds, well over 300 pounds in those updates that we saw, a month ago, weeks ago, whatever it was. And I still think looking at this update, as he's starting to get into his prep, he's starting to tighten up here, I still think for as big as he got, you're not really seeing the progress in the lower body that you would expect to see from someone that gained that much weight. I look at these updates from Blessing. The first thing I thought was, okay, cool. He's starting to tighten up here. He's getting into his prep. He doesn't look like he looked in the offseason. That's better. But the second thing that I thought was his lower body still looks like it's lagging behind the upper body, even with all that downtime, even with all the size that he gained. You're still not really seeing those jumps in the lower body improvement that he really does need if he wants to be one of the top guys. That's just what I notice about these updates. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you agree, disagree with what I'm saying here? How do you think Blessing looks in these updates? And how do you think he's going to perform in the 2025 contest season? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, next up in the news, kind of in line with how we started this video, pros that haven't been very active when it comes to competing. Sergio Oliva Jr., he took about a year off. We haven't seen him compete in a while. To me, a year is a while. We're not close to 3 years, but a year is a while. Sergio Oliva Jr.'s latest physique update at 308 pounds. Now, he didn't say this in this update, but I saw a lot of people saying he's 12 weeks out here. And 12 weeks would be 3 months. 3 months from this picture would be the New York Pro. So I'm pretty sure that's the show he's doing. I'm not 100% certain, so take that with a grain of salt. But from what I heard, that's what he's doing. And I think when you look at this update, in contrast to Blessing's update, this is a guy that's over 300 pounds. Maybe Blessing, it's been over a year since we saw him on stage. But this is a guy that's over 300 pounds. He took an extended amount of time off from competing. Look at the difference in contrast from Sergio's physique to Blessing's as far as the lower body. I think Sergio actually looks great here. This is a great 300-plus pounds. He looks big, but his lower body matches. His lower body looks crazy. You can see separation in the quads. Teardrops look crazy, all that. And Sergio is another guy, kind of like Nick, in the sense that I'm a big fan of Sergio, but I feel like he gets so much like hate and criticism, and I just really don't get it. With Nick, I can kind of understand where it's coming from because of some of the stuff that happened recently. But Sergio, I feel like a lot of people just give him shit, and I don't get it. Like, really, the only thing that I think when I look at these updates from Sergio is, number one, wow, he's over 300 pounds. This is an impressive look for 300 plus. And number two, I can't wait to see him compete again. And that's it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below about Sergio, his latest update, him competing, etc., all that good stuff. Now, next up in the news, this is a big one. We got an official update yesterday from Samson Dauda, the official 6 weeks out update. And I gotta say, Samson looks phenomenal in this update. Deeply separated legs. We don't know what he's weighing here, but I would assume at this point he's still over 300 pounds. I mean, the detail in his legs, the separation in his abs, this is a really, really good Samson. He doesn't look flat. He's like bursting full. He looks huge. He turns around from the back. You can still see his hamstrings are carved up. You can almost see striations in the glutes. And again, we're still 6 weeks out. His back looks improved. Samson, I think, just continues to impress. And I think is looking like every bit of the favorite that he is to win the Arnold Classic. And proving to be a very large obstacle, both figuratively and literally, for Derek Lunsford. And you know, one of the things that is often criticized about Samson, and from myself too, is in some of the updates going into a show when you're getting closer to the show, is lack of striations in Samson's chest. That's something that takes him some time to get. You can see striations when he hits some of these side poses in particular. You can see striations in the far pec. And even when he hit it was like the front lat spread, which is not even really a chest-centric pose. You can see striations starting in the center of his pec. Make no mistake, this is a very, very good version of Samson. If it wasn't already an intimidating and daunting enough task for the other bodybuilders in this Arnold Classic lineup going up against your current reigning Mr. Olympia, seeing these updates, to me, this Samson looks significantly better at 6 weeks out from this Arnold than the Samson that we saw at 6 weeks out from the Olympia. And we know how the Olympia turned out. Samson won that. This, to me, looks better than those updates. This, to me, looks almost as good as he looked on stage at the Tsunami Pro that he did right before the Olympia. This is a really solid version of Samson's physique. He's really just kind of undeniably impressive at this point. Whether you like Samson or dislike him, all the kind of controversy that swirled around him in 2024, almost missing the Arnold Classic UK, the hospitalization thing, and kind of clapping back at his fans, leaving Milos, working with his wife, all this stuff in 2024. However you feel about Samson personally, it's really hard to look at these updates of Samson and be anything other than impressed. Even if you're the biggest Hadi Chupin fan in the world and you think that Hadi was robbed at the Olympia, I don't think you can watch this video right here and not be impressed as a bodybuilding fan. This is just an absolutely surreal looking physique. And if somebody, Samson, I think clearly is the favorite at the Arnold, so I'll say it like this. If somebody is able to beat Samson at the Arnold Classic, and he's your reigning Mr. Olympia, so they really have to knock him out, that physique that beats Samson at the Arnold will probably be one of the most incredible physiques we've ever seen if Samson is defeated in Columbus, because the way he's looking right now, it's very hard to imagine. So if Derek, for example, comes in with a physique to beat Samson, it'll probably be the best Derek that we've ever seen. Because based on what we're seeing in these updates, it seems like we're definitely on track to see the best Samson that we've ever seen. But I'm going to wrap up the video there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you made it this far in the video, I always say this when we get close to the half an hour mark on a video, because I literally rarely ever go half an hour on just a regular daily upload. If you made it this far in the video, make sure you hit the like button, because the last time I went to the half an hour mark, it got significantly more likes than just a regular video. So if you enjoy the longer videos and you watched this whole thing and you made it this far, just make sure you hit like. And that way I know to keep making these longer videos. If this one gets, again, significantly more than a previous video that was, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. If you want them to be closer to half an hour, keep liking the longer ones. Because I know that especially in the fitness community, people prefer a little bit longer videos, myself included. When I'm doing cardio, I want a video that's going to take me through the whole session. A lot of people do a half an hour of cardio. One video gets them through the whole thing. That's great. So if you do like this longer format video, then like it, please, and thank you. So that's going to wrap it up for the video, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.